And black people can't afford to indulge rich white people's need to endlessly flagellate themselves. They just want prices to go down and good jobs and the police when you call them.
Well, if he's right, then why didn't people vote for the former prosecutor who actually had policy plans to help the working class?
Stop saying that Whoopi Goldberg getting yanked from The View right after she attacked me on The View is karma. There's no such thing as karma, sorry. No. Sorry, but life is random. The only word to describe it when a big game hunter gets trampled by an elephant and then eaten by lions is hilarious. We have got to get past this endless, unforgiving, zero-tolerance mindset bent on punishing and disappearing anyone caught saying the wrong thing. The right response to speech you don't like is more speech.
Bill Maher is out here tearing through woke arguments like it's his personal mission and his latest target, none other than Whoopi Goldberg. Let's be honest, she walked right into this one, stacking up a record of cringeworthy takes since 2022. Maher didn't just call her out, he obliterated her. Line by line, piece by piece, like a demolition expert taking down a condemned building. The verbal takedown was so ruthless, Whoopi might as well have been dodging falling pianos in a slapstick cartoon. So, what exactly did she say this time to trigger Maher's unfiltered fury? And how did his comeback leave the woke crowd absolutely wrecked? Oh, don't worry. We've got all the juicy details right here. Strap in because this isn't just a bumpy ride. It's a full-speed crash course with no brakes. Whoopi Goldberg just poked the wrong bear, and now she's getting slashed by the claws of cold, hard truth. And trust me, it ain't pretty. Remember when Bill Maher roasted Sunny Hostin for twisting his words? Well, the View crew clearly didn't take that L quietly. This time, Whoopi Goldberg is stepping up, looking to settle the score like she's on some personal crusade for revenge. Looks like Sunny couldn't handle the heat from Maher's last takedown, so she called for backup. Enter Whoopi, storming in like she's got something to prove. And trust me, she came in swinging, like a contestant in a reality show nobody even asked for. Classic Whoopi Goldberg, flipping through the woke playbook like it's her personal instruction manual. When the argument starts sinking like the Titanic, the go-to move: build a straw man and go on the offensive. Bill Maher was laying down a simple, clear point. Black Americans want better jobs, a stronger economy, and responsible policing. Straightforward, right? But then Whoopi jumps in, rambling about voting for a former prosecutor with a so-called plan for the working class.
And black people can't afford to indulge rich white people's need to endlessly flagellate themselves. They just want prices to go down and good jobs and the police when you call them.
Well, if he's right, then why didn't people vote for the former prosecutor who actually had policy plans to help the working class? I mean...
Does that connect? Not even close. Does the logic track? Absolutely not. Because there isn't any. It's like she's throwing darts in the dark, hoping something lands. Spoiler alert, nothing sticks. And Maher? Oh, he wasn't about to let that nonsense slide. Bill Maher didn't hold back. He laid it all out, calling out Whoopi's argument for what it was, completely detached from reality, which, let's be honest, is pretty much business as usual over at The View. That show has turned into the political talk equivalent of a train wreck. You know it's bad, but you just can't look away? Sure, The View has always been a breeding ground for controversy, with takes so questionable they could be classified as satire. But Whoopi and Sunny Hostin, they've managed to crank the chaos up to a whole new level. Just think back to when Charlemagne the God braved that set as a guest. You could see the regret in his eyes, like he'd accidentally stepped into some alternate dimension where logic goes to die.
The criticism is valid because, Democrats stand on this moral high ground all the time and, they act so self-righteous. The reality is he didn't have to say anything. in regards to, you know, whether or not, you know, his son wanted to be pardoned. He could have said, hey, man, I'm not focused on that right now.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Uh-oh.
Only because you don't know that it was a lie. We don't know why he changed
You
his
really think he just changed his mind over Thanksgiving weekend all
No,
of a sudden?
I'm going to tell you what I think.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he changed his mind because he got sick of watching everybody else get over. So I'm just going to follow the straight and narrow always, because that's what's expected of Democrats.
But that's their fault. They're the ones that
They're
the ones that go out there and they stand on this moral high ground.
Listen,
they don't have to do that.
President Joe Biden, the self-proclaimed warrior for justice and accountability, just pulled the ultimate family favor. He pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, right after Surprise. Surprise, a guilty verdict for corruption and other shady dealings. Family values, huh? This move sent shockwaves through critics, and for good reason. How do you stand on your soapbox preaching that no one is above the law, only to turn around and hand your son a get-out-of-jail-free card? It's almost like justice is blind, unless your last name is Biden. Hunter's guilt was as obvious as a kid standing next to an empty cookie jar with crumbs all over his face. Yet somehow, accountability just wasn't penciled into the Biden family calendar. And that's exactly what Charlemagne was getting at. If the woke crowd keeps shouting that nobody is above the law, then maybe, just maybe, they should actually follow their own rules. Sounds simple, right? Well, Whoopi Goldberg had other ideas, and here we go again. Yet another eye-roll-inducing take from the queen of cringe herself, Whoopi Goldberg. This time, she straight up defended Biden, insisting he didn't lie when he said, "No one is above the law." Really, Whoopi? Because there's a mountain of evidence, video, audio, and maybe even ancient cave paintings proving he said exactly that. Watching Whoopi spin a blatant lie is like watching someone stand under a cloudless sky and swear it's not blue. At this point, her mental gymnastics could qualify for the Olympics. Though, let's be real, she'd probably trip over her own logic before even sticking the landing. You could see the shock on Charlemagne's face when Whoopi started spewing nonsense. But did that stop her? Not a chance! She doubled down, claiming that maybe, just maybe, Biden changed his mind because he was just so tired of watching everyone take advantage of him. Charlemagne was so stunned he didn't even know what to say. But here's the thing, the woke mob always plays by a different rulebook. They're quick to point fingers when the so-called wrongdoer isn't in their little club. But when it's one of their own, suddenly the outrage disappears, replaced with weak excuses and conveniently short memories. Of course, Whoopi and her crew got away with their nonsense this time because Charlemagne was too polite to call them out. But when Bill Maher caught wind of their antics, oh, he wasn't having it. He basically said, "Hold my beer," and delivered one of the most brutal verbal smackdowns we've seen in a long time. Maher couldn't have put it better. Again.
Above any matters of politics or what's right or wrong, the one thing I know for sure about America is this. It's run by mean girls. Mean girls in the press and in politics and in life. And when they smell blood in the water, the lust to finish off a vulnerable person will never be denied. You love to speak truth to power, and we always should, but you have completely lost the ability to speak truth to bullshit.
The woke mob loves to pose as the ultimate truth tellers, the moral authorities, the ones who always stand for justice. But this was straight up hypocrisy, exposed for everyone to see. This time, Hunter Biden was guilty, plain and simple. But because his dad happens to sit in the Oval Office, he gets to walk away scot-free. No consequences, no accountability. If it had been anyone else, the mob would be out for blood, demanding punishment, screaming for justice. But when it's one of their own? Suddenly, the outrage vanishes and justice takes a backseat to straight-up favoritism. This is hypocrisy at its absolute finest. And Maher was right to call it what it is, a total farce. The real question? How much longer are Americans going to tolerate this two-faced nonsense? This isn't just about Hunter Biden. It's about a system that bends over backwards for the powerful while throwing the book at everyone else. Maher's takedown wasn't just timely, it was a wake-up call for anyone still clinging to the illusion of fairness. But here's where it gets really interesting. Maher pointed out that the woke mob doesn't just operate on its own, they've got backup. And that backup? The mainstream media. Now that's a question worth asking. How deep does this go? No doubt about it, the media bent over backwards to bury the Hunter Biden scandal. They worked overtime to shield President Biden while doing everything in their power to derail Trump's re-election. Key outlets even dismissed the whole story as Russian disinformation, despite mounting evidence proving otherwise. And to make matters worse, they didn't just spin the narrative, they outright censored dissenting voices. And who was right there, backing the cover-up? None other than Whoopi Goldberg. She eagerly jumped on The View to mock the legitimacy of the allegations, brushing them off like they were some wild conspiracy theory. But Maher? Oh, he wasn't having it. He called her out, not just for running defense for Biden, but for refusing to even acknowledge the truth. He tore apart her excuses, exposing the blatant hypocrisy playing out in front of everyone. And he was spot on. The ladies of The View, especially Whoopi, aren't just woke. They're like a pack of sharks, circling and ready to tear apart anyone who doesn't bow to their ideology. Their version of debate isn't about actual discussion or finding truth. It's about silencing opposing voices and enforcing their worldview with sneers and snark. Whoopi, in particular, has perfected the art of shutting people down with a casual wave of her hand, like differing opinions are beneath her. But Maher? He wasn't afraid to put them on blast. He exposed their tactics for what they really are, bullying disguised as activism. And that's exactly why he's become such a thorn in their side. For viewers who are sick and tired of one-sided narratives, Maher's takedowns feel like a breath of fresh air in a room filled with the same stale, recycled arguments. Maher makes it clear. The woke mob needs to stop clutching their pearls over Trump's win and start facing reality. He didn't steal it, he didn't cheat for it, and he definitely didn't conjure it out of thin air. He won fair and square because millions of Americans liked what he was selling, whether the progressive left could stomach it or not. Instead of blaming Russia, racism, or whatever the trending scapegoat is this week, maybe it's time to accept that democracy means sometimes the other side wins. That's not a glitch. It's the system working exactly as intended. The sooner they stop playing the victim and start playing the game, the better shot they'll have in 2028 or even 2032. And once again, Maher nails it. Not every Trump voter is out there waving MAGA flags or pledging allegiance to golden statues. A lot of them weren't thrilled about their choice, but they still cast their votes because they were tired of the endless Democratic lectures and the woke mob's increasingly unhinged agenda. Let's be real. When you're cheering for biological men to dominate women's sports or holding rallies that seem suspiciously sympathetic to extremist groups, you're going to lose a chunk of voters. People didn't pick Trump because they loved his tweets or his orange glow. They did it because the alternative felt like sitting through a lecture from a self-righteous vegan at a BBQ, exhausting, out of touch, and completely dismissive of everyday concerns. If the left actually wants to win, maybe it's time to stop alienating the middle by jumping on every fringe activist cause that comes along. They need to ditch the woke playbook and start focusing on what actually makes sense to the average American. And honestly, this whole thing is comedy gold. Bill Maher didn't just deliver the final nail in Whoopi Goldberg's coffin. He built the whole thing, sealed it shut, and laughed at the absurdity while doing it. Whoopi, the self-appointed high priestess of the woke mob, thought she could take a swing at Maher for daring to think for himself. Big mistake. Maher's response? Vintage Bill. Sharp, unapologetic, and absolutely hilarious. He called out the irony of The View, a show that claims to be a space for diverse opinions, going after him simply for having a view they didn't like. A little rich, isn't it? The same crowd that screams tolerance at every turn apparently thinks tolerance means only tolerating their opinions. But Maher, as usual, wasn't having it. He tore apart the hypocrisy of the woke echo chamber that Whoopi and her crew live in, a place where tribal loyalty replaces actual thinking, and dissent is treated like heresy. Watching Maher dismantle their weak arguments was like watching Picasso paint, except his brushstrokes were pure sarcasm and razor-sharp logic. And that's a wrap for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what you think. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.